Hi everyone, and welcome to this very special podcast from PATTA, the Portable Appliance Testing Trade Association. My name is Tim James. I'm Standards Director of PATTA, and I'm here with Liam Reid from Trent Safety Services. Liam is also on the steering committee for PATTA. And we're going to talk a little bit today about the sort of challenges that you find in running a PAT testing business, in trying to win clients, how to sort of compete against the big national companies that charge very low prices, don't do the job very well, and basically how you win work. And I know Liam has started his business about 7 years ago and has got a lot to say about the best ways to win some new clients. So Liam, the last time we were together was at a PATTA committee meeting. I think it was in Grantham, and in one of the breaks we were chatting a bit about sort of some of the challenges that you face when you first start up in business and you're sort of trying to win clients, not just new businesses but even established businesses. And you had quite a lot of information that I remember thinking at the time this would be really good for a sort of a PATTA podcast. So a few weeks later, here we are. I'm going to start off by asking you something like really quite simple. I'm going to say, imagine if you were just starting out today, you've maybe done a PAT testing course, you've bought yourself a PAT tester, you've got some labels, you've got some screwdrivers and some spare plugs and fuses, and what would be the first thing do you think you would do if you were trying to win some clients and get some working?
One of the most simple ways, sounds simplistic to say, but one of the best ways to actually get out there and drive some revenue and bring some clients on board is to get out there and meet people.
Right, okay.
I would say certainly knock doors. So investing in some leaflets or some business cards certainly would be a way to go. This is obviously assuming that you've got your website and things like that built up in the background anyway, because obviously customers like to reference when you hand them a leaflet.
So how important do you think it is to have a website and that sort of thing?
I think in today's day and age, I think I won't say it's the most important thing, right. But certainly I would personally, I think it's quite important. Because clients do use websites or social media to sometimes reference people. If you've knocked on the door cold, gone to hand in a leaflet, well, we don't know who these guys are. They might sort of check out your website, and that'll give you a little bit. But I wouldn't labour too much on having a really dynamic website. Just a little bit of something that tells you a bit about the company, certainly when you're first starting out.
Right, okay, no, that's good. And what about sort of traditional forms of marketing, like say Yellow Pages or maybe just handing out business cards? What about that sort of thing?
So a bit of a split there. Yellow Pages, worth registering maybe, but I wouldn't sort of wholeheartedly rely on the phone ringing. I think I'm thinking of Yellow Pages as like the directory that people used to hand out. But of course, I imagine, I haven't checked, but I imagine all that's online now. But probably I think they do get delivered occasionally, but I think they're about that thin now, where they used to be, there used to be shows on TV where they try and rip him in half. They don't exist anymore. No. So it's important to have as many different routes to market as possible. I would say that's really important. So things like having your website built and social media and Yellow Pages and things like that's vitally important. But when starting out, one of your main routes to market, and I say when it's starting out, 7 years on, we're still doing this as a team right now, which is going out and knocking doors. And I think that, let's be honest, when I actually think about it, that goes for big and small companies. I worked in corporations for, between sort of 15, 20 years where we'd work in sales team and we did the exact same thing. We'd go and knock on doors, deliver business cards and tell people about us and what we do. Because that phone's not going to ring without it. Gone are the days where the business would come to you. You've got to get out there and find that business. And I think knocking on doors and seeing companies, if you really want to grow your PAT testing business, should be number one on your list of marketing activities.
Fair enough. I have to say, from a personal point of view, I hate doing stuff like that. How do you sort of cope with the idea of like the rejection, I suppose, if you're knocking on doors or you're dealing with people who don't want to be disturbed, if you're phoning people, cold calling, how do you deal with all that side of it? Is it just suck it up and deal with it?
There's a part of you who's got to do that. So there's an element of being thick-skinned, I must admit, and being told no. But what I always say to my team is there's no such thing as a wasted call or a wasted visit. Right. Because what we do is we take any data that we can about that business that we know, and that might be a rejection. So if we ring them and they say no, and we know they've got a PAT testing need because we may have identified that, but they've said no, phone's gone dead, we now know a little bit more about them. So we now probably know that phone calls is not perhaps the way to approach them.
Yeah.
I can give you an anecdote actually.
Yeah.
This is a long time ago now in a completely different industry. I had a client that literally just couldn't get in, and it was in the shipping industry, and they were shipping out particular winter weather goods, and they were with another large supplier, and whatever we did, we just couldn't get in. And I learned something about that client, so a phone call was never going to do it. And if I knocked on the door, he wasn't going to see me.
Yeah.
So we used to have these really cool sort of parcels and diaries every year in January. And this is going to sound really cheesy, by the way.
Okay,
right?
go on.
But I literally got a diary. It was a really nice diary. Got a post-it note, wrote on it, I've wrote you a date for a meeting first week in January.
Oh, fantastic.
I know it sounds so cheesy, honestly.
Yeah.
Cringing almost at the thought of it.
Yeah.
Put it in this really cool parcel with a couple of like branded pens,
yeah,
and put it through. Turned into one of the biggest accounts that I'd ever bought in, because at that particular time, and this is the thing sometimes, timing's really important as well. So at that particular time, they're having some major issues with their current supplier. So we had a meeting, and sometimes it's getting through the door.
Yeah.
And once you're through the door and you can actually speak to someone, you can actually talk about you as a business, what you can deliver for them, and perhaps how you're going to be different from what they're already getting. And then that goes back to the element of data, I guess, and the sort of no wasted visit. So going back to what we do as a team, so we do, again, it's a really old school way of doing things. It's called a blitz day. So we'll have a load of printed leaflets, and as a team, we'll descend on an industrial estate, and we'll basically cover that industrial estate.
Oh, really?
With knocking the door with leaflets, going through the door. Can I just leave you a leaflet?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. There's always a reception.
Yeah.
On that reception, there'll be a monitor.
Okay.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Or a coffee machine.
Yeah.
There's bound to be a sticker on it. We can all read. So as we're walking out, we make a note, and that starts to build up a bit of a database there.
Yeah.
So, and I say time is
actually
important.
Finding out when their PAT testing is due.
Yes.
Yeah. And then.
What's the point in targeting somebody who's due in December when you're speaking to in January? There's very little point.
Okay.
But the more data you gather, and the more you can build out your own database.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It could be a book that you've got labelled January to December, and you write them down. Doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah.
But as long as you can get that out a couple of months before it's due and say, well, hang on, ABC Limited, they're coming up.
Yeah.
They're a decent size.
Yeah.
That could make a big difference for me. You can then start to target it within that period.
Yeah. One of the things that I've tried to do with my business is we've tried to adopt what I refer to as a 999 approach. I don't know if you've heard of this. So it's if you lose a job or if you don't win it, you put a price in and you're too expensive or whatever. And then you think, well, let's go on a 999 basis. So 9 days after you contact them and you say, look, I know we didn't win this work, but hopefully it's going all right with the people you have chosen, but we're still here, we're still willing to help you if you get stuck. And then sort of 9 weeks after, then you reckon the job's probably been done by now, but they might have been a bit annoyed by how it went. Maybe it didn't go very well. So you sort of get in touch with them 9 weeks after and you say, well, actually, we are still here, sorry, hopefully it went all right, but, bear us in mind for next year. If it's all right, we'll contact you just before. And then 9 months go by and they say, look, you asked us for a price last year, we didn't get it, but we know you went with somebody else. But, just to let you know, we're still here. And, we found that works quite well.
That's a really good approach. I might have to do that myself, actually. Because, well, the 9 week bit I really like. Yeah. And that's one I probably wouldn't have thought of, really, because, I've just said, look, there's no point targeting somebody in December when they're due in January. Yeah. However, if that's been carried out in the February or whatever it is, and we speak to them in, April time or something like that, if they've had a poor service, that emotion's still going to be quite high for the client.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And that's a great time to strike, I think, certainly. Yeah. I'll tell you something else we do, Tim, as well, when it comes to either when we don't win work, we always ask for feedback. Right. Always. Okay. And I think it's a really, and you can then start to tell your story a little bit. So, we always write to the client and say, would you mind giving us feedback? We are a small family business. Yeah. We want to grow our business, and these are the reasons why, and how we go about doing it. So you can put a bit in there about sort of, being professional, doing the job right. Yeah. But we want to know where we're missing out on work. Is there any chance you can give us some feedback? And we do get a lot of responses to that. Yeah,
I can see that working really well. So, a lot of the time you put a price in for a job and you're just too expensive. Mm-hmm. How much do you sort of focus your marketing on the service that you offer? And maybe leading on from that, how do you sort of tackle clients who sort of, they're only interested in the lowest price and they're not really interested in how well it's done? How do you tackle that?
Well, I think in any industry, there's going to be sort of good clients and I wouldn't say bad clients, that's probably the wrong word, but clients that perhaps aren't really for you. We want the clients that care about the safety and want the job doing properly. And it's quite hard to find sometimes, but there's a lot of them out there and they want the job doing properly. Now, when it comes to price versus your performance, shall we say, I rate performance every day. It's much higher priority, making sure that you adhere to your values as a business, because ultimately your values is your compass. It's your moral compass, it's your business compass, and that helps you. That helps you certainly grow. Certainly, I would say that. I'm not going to sit here and say that price isn't important because we live in a competitive marketplace. But there are limits to what you can and can't do. I think. And this goes back to when you're at the planning stage, when you're kind of looking at developing your business, is knowing what your costs are. Essentially, and knowing what what it's going to cost you to run your business. And I think once you know that, and then you know how many items you can do per hour and things like that, really basic kind of calculations you can do, that gives you an idea realistically as to where you set yourself price wise, but also what's the limit? What's we don't want to go lower than that mark, because you can easily get sucked into the sort of how many times do we hear race to the bottom and things like that? What we don't want to do as an industry is drive that price lower. Keep your quality high. Tell your client what you do, and ultimately they will come back around. Certainly.
I mean, that's something that certainly PATTA is trying to sort of get across. I've always felt that maybe trying to sort of regulate the industry is not necessarily the right idea, because then if you make PAT testing law, you're just going to end up with a lot of more bad PAT testing. And I think the best way to sort of improve standards is to educate the customer in what's required. So if you're the head teacher of a school, for example, you don't have to be an expert on PAT testing, but you have to understand a little bit about when it's been done right and when it's not been done right. So if somebody comes in and puts 1,000 stickers on in a day, then as a head teacher you need to know that isn't acceptable, and they will still be liable, of course, if there's an accident. So I think that's something that PATTA is trying to get across. But certainly, we've all had it as we contact our customers and we put a price in, and then they say, "Oh no, we've got a price. It's half of what you're charging," and it's really hard to walk away from that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's quite a kick, isn't it, when you sort of go in and you see what the competition price is. But I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head about sort of, and I can see the industry almost sort of making a bit of a turn for the better in a way. I'm starting to see that a little bit more. And it might not seem that to everyone. Listen, there's always going to be jobs where it's done a lot cheaper. Pence per item. Very low, but it's not the only industry. I work in the fire industry as well, and I see it all the time in the fire industry. Prices being driven down, and what comes with that is very low level of service. And we're talking about safety services here, so it's really important, and it's quite hard. You've mentioned something really interesting, Tim, which is educating the client or the end user, shall we say. Now, we've got the competency, so it's quite hard really, isn't it? So we get to sit, and I get to sit on the fire side as well, and I sort of look at things and I go, that's dangerous, that's really bad, sort of poor performance there when we talk about servicing and standards. But the client's not always going to know that. That's the problem, and I think that's where, as an industry, we've got to keep talking to clients. Anecdotes, I think, are really important. And I think, demonstrating failed equipment that we found, and it's a really good question to ask your clients as well. If you've got a big job and it's, a couple of thousand items, well, how many failures did the previous incumbent bring you?
Oh, right, okay.
Because let's be honest, if they're not checking it properly, they can't be finding any failures.
Absolutely.
If I've got 2,000 items tested, I'm going to find something, aren't I?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in school or something like that,
We all find items that quite obviously haven't been tested properly, things with like counterfeit plugs on and things that haven't been picked up, and they've got a pass sticker on from a previous company.
Exactly that, I mean, things deteriorate, we know that. So things age over a period of time. But also things get abused, things get kicked around in schools maybe, or building sites, or even in offices, the trays that open up and have the plugs coming out and the cables, how many times do we see those? It's a really good question to ask your client when you're trying to win that work and they're paying, really low pence per item. Well, how many failures are they actually bringing you? Because if they're not bringing you too many, then are they actually inspecting anything? And like you say, that client, and the important thing is pointing out to the client that they're still liable for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of duty holders probably don't realise that they are duty holders because they're just ticking a box. Yeah. They think, I need to get my stuff PAT tested. They phone a company, or they get called by loads and loads of different companies. They choose the cheapest.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes around and puts a load of stickers on, but then the stuff isn't being tested properly, and then that's obviously a problem for them.
Yeah. But what makes us different, I guess, and it's that word, it's the differentiators. It's pointing out the differentiators to the client. Yeah. That's knowing your value. Your value is your differentiators. Yeah. It's how you carry out the work.
Yeah.
It's how you report back to the client.
Yeah.
It's how you leave the particular client's site. It's all right paying a really small pence per item, but if there's stickers all over the place and monitors facing backwards or tools left out of boxes, is it worth it? For the difference of actually paying somebody who actually cares about the job.
Yeah.
And that's the differentiators for me. Yeah. For me, that's what's going to drive and help you win that.
So how do you sort of deal with that stuff in your business then? Because obviously you employ engineers.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of make sure that they're doing the job right, and how important do you think it is? Like you mentioned about leaving the place tidy. You're obviously selling that from a marketing point of view, but then I suppose you've got to back it up. You've got to walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
Yeah, it's a really good question, to be honest, because it's something we're really focused on at the moment. I mean, listen, I trust my guys explicitly. I've got a real great team behind me. I'm really grateful for that. They've all bought into the plan that we've got as a business and how we're going to grow.
Amazing.
And part of that is fundamentally, firstly, our values as a business, because our core values are what help us grow, essentially. So we've got a number of values within our business about basically doing the job right and correctly, which is one thing. We have team meetings where we sort of emphasise that and drive that home once a month, and then we audit and we support our guys as well. So we audit it from an educational point of view, not a bashing sort of view, but I'll go out to site and have a look at the work that they carry out, which is, I guess, quite hard to do in terms of PAT testing.
Of course,
but I'll go out and have a look at some of the work that they've carried out, and I'll speak to the clients as well. How did you find my guys? Were they personable? We've got a little card that we hand our clients at the end with a feedback review.
Oh, okay.
Which is really good because feedback's really good.
QR code.
It is. It's a QR code, links to Google, which does help with your rankings and things like that.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, when I mentioned about sort of having a website and having a reference point, well, let's be honest, like you say, place people go to is Google and they look at the reviews. So getting as many reviews as you can is really important. But also getting those reviews and speaking to clients helps us understand what we're doing right or maybe wrong as a business as well. So that's how I kind of keep with my guys. But I must say, I'm very lucky. My guys are great, and they've massively bought into what we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
I mean, let's just talk about Google a bit more, because one of the things I find with my training business is, 30 years ago when I first started teaching people how to do PAT testing, I set up a website. The internet was quite new when I first started teaching people how to do PAT testing, and so I've got a web domain that's 30 years old, and really it was a case of I'm putting on a course. This is where it is. This is how much it costs, and people would phone up a book.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I mean, what I found in the last couple of years is loads of companies springing up running courses. There's a lot of online courses now that are terrible, but people are buying them, and it's affecting our trade. And obviously we're having to work really, really hard on the SEO and that sort of thing. And I suppose from a PAT testing point of view, we find that as well, because there's so many companies out there offering services, and if you're new, how do you think you can sort of compete with that? Would you recommend like Google advertising, or would you just recommend paying somebody to do your SEO, or is it just a case of just building your website and hoping that people find it?
I think having a website is important.
Yeah.
Hoping that people will find it. It's just not going to happen, essentially. Okay. Like you've said, Tim, from where you were originally to how competitive it is now. Yeah. I mean, that's training courses. When you think about how many PAT testing companies there are in the UK, you multiply that by 100, essentially, really, don't you?
Yeah.
And you're right, you know, and unfortunately there are a lot of the companies out there, maybe ones that, you know, are charging that low headline rate, if that makes sense, that have maybe invested in the SEOs, you know, bigger companies and things like that. It's quite a difficult question. I can only tell you my experience of that, which is we never sort of invested in the SEO or anything like that initially.
Right.
And it depends how comfortable you are with things like, you know, there'll be people out there that will be listening to this now and watching this and go, look, I've not got a clue about websites or anything, but I'm a great PAT tester.
Yeah.
And that may be where you want to invest in somebody to do it for you.
Yeah.
And then that opens up its minefield, because there'll be people that charge you a little bit and people that charge you a lot. And, you know, that's its own, on another podcast, on a website podcast maybe. But you find somebody that you can trust, essentially, and then you get them to build that all out for you. I'm not too bad at it, so I managed to kind of do a bit myself. I used a sort of platform that allows you to build your website and manage your own SEO. So I weren't too bad at that. So that kind of got us up the rankings a little bit. But that's not where I started. That's only something I've done in the past couple of years, and we've been operating for 7 years now. Initially, what I did was create a really basic website that went, look, here's what we do. And it's a reference point, essentially, for people to go to if they want to check out who you are, or through a link through social media that they may have done, or things like that. But essentially, I'm going to go back to the point of, if you want to grow, you've got to get out there and knock doors and see people initially.
Got to get off your ass and do it,
basically. 100%, You're in a slightly different position, Tim, where you've been obviously operating as a in the sort of teaching side for a while now.
Well, we do all aspects of the industry.
Have you had to pivot what you do, if you don't mind me asking?
That's all right.
In terms of you know, SEO and things like that yourself as well? Is that?
Oh, massively. Yeah. I used to do a lot of SEO up until a few years ago, before COVID, really. And, you know, we got to number 1 on Google, and that was great. And then I just sort of took my eye off the ball a little bit, and then suddenly we find that there's loads of other companies offering the same service. So yeah, it's hard. You can't just do it once. You've got to just keep doing it. You've got to do a little bit every day. And
because SEO search engine optimization, isn't it?
Yes,
See, I only know that. See, even my skills go about to there.
I probably should have explained that to anybody listening.
No. But have you now invested in that yourself? Have you got somebody doing that for you?
Yeah, we're paying somebody to do that. Yeah, and it's expensive
because of the maintenance that goes along with it.
And we're paying for Google advertising as well. It costs a fortune. But I mean, obviously that's partly for the training side of it, but partly for the PAT testing side as well. I mean, obviously for my business, we're kind of like a one-stop shop. So we do PAT testing, but we also sell equipment, and we do training courses as well. And so we can offer something a little bit unique to some of our customers. Like, for example, schools might train a few people to do PAT testing, but they'll also pay us to do the bulk of it once a year or whatever. So we go around and do the whole school, but then they maybe have a couple of people in the school that will sort of pick up odd bits and pieces.
Brilliant.
As well. And obviously a good thing for us when we do courses is a lot of people, once they know what the process involves, then, you know, if you're a caretaker in a school and you say, well, look, we do have a company coming around once a year, they can monitor what that company is doing. And so many people come to me and say, well, look, I've done the course, I've got to the end of it, got my certificate. I never knew there was this much to it. And this company that come around and put the stickers on, they're not doing any of the things that we did today. They're not opening the plugs, you know, they're not turning the computers off before they test them. They're doing thousands of items in a day. And of course, these guys are going away knowing that the company that they're using isn't doing it right. And then of course, that sort of leads into, from what we're talking about today, you know, it should be possible for you to go into a school, explain a bit about the process, and then they're doing the maths in their head and thinking, hang on a minute, this company that we are paying 50p an item for aren't doing the job right. Therefore, we need to think about getting somebody else to do it.
And that's the hard bit, because you've mentioned clients that you've got that they've now got a level of competency to understand what is good PAT testing and what's bad PAT testing. It's going to be really hard to kind of educate the nation, I guess, isn't it? But that's where you come in with your sales pitch when you're looking to win a new client, and it's actually explaining what you do in terms of the visual side, removing plug tops, checking fusers, how you record that information. I often talk a little bit about items per day as well, because when there's a great phrase on the PATTA website actually, it says that if you're paying X amount for your PAT testing, it's likely there's going to be shortcuts being taken because they'll be earning less than minimum wage if they're doing this per hour essentially. So I tend to talk a lot with my clients about sort of that, and I would say, look, my guys can do this amount per day really as a maximum, and if they're doing more, which is another great way, of monitoring your staff, if you've got staff, if they're doing a lot more, something's going wrong. And corners are being cut essentially.
I mean, I always say that if you're doing something all day, every day, if it's your business, you can find efficiencies. And my engineers, your engineers, will be able to test quickly. And, we look at our systems. I mean, years ago, we looked at our systems. We almost regarded it almost like a Formula One team. And it was like, if we can shave like half a second off here per test, well, if you're doing, thousands of items a month, then it adds up to quite a lot of time saved. And we looked at lots of different PAT testers. I mean, obviously, there's something that crops up in like the PATA Facebook group, for example, and people say, well, this is how long it takes me. And you say, but what PAT tester are you using? What system are you using? And when you look at their system, it turns out that actually their system is quite slow, the system is quite methodical. I spent 45 minutes at the end of a course the other day trying to connect a Bluetooth printer to a PAT tester. And I just think, that's time wasted.
Tim, I gave up on Bluetooth printers.
Absolutely.
The first time I tried to get it on, I'll get some printed, I'm not going to bother with this. But you're right, those efficiencies can certainly make you a better PAT tester. But even so, there's still a massive difference between that and 1,000 in a day where you can tell somebody's just been throwing stickers around.
Find a way of doing the job efficiently and quicker, but not missing out any important parts
of the process. Not at the cost of the actual inspection itself. 100%.
Okay, fantastic. So, in your experience then, how do you find the customers are in terms of their knowledge of what their own responsibilities are? So, for example, if you go to a customer, do they know that they have a responsibility to make sure their stuff is safe? Do they care about the level of service, do you think, or are they just interested in getting a box ticked?
Like you say, there's bad and good customers, I guess, really, isn't there? They're going to be customers that know their the responsibilities, but may want a box ticked to get them fulfilled, unfortunately. But that's where we come in and try and educate them about what their actual responsibilities are. I do think it's getting better. I do think it's certainly getting better with the conversations that I've had. I think the fire industry has had a real sort of big help with that, because now there's a lot more, the risk assessment industry is absolutely firing on all cylinders now. So there's a lot of risk assessments being carried out. And one of the questions in there is, what's your PAT testing regime, essentially, which is driving that, not just from the sort of health and safety act side of things, but from the fire side as well. So I think customers are getting a lot more educated. But I think it helps when you've got responsible companies like our PATA members going out and educating them. I think that really helps.
And do you find that being a member of PATA is an advantage when you're selling your services?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, because you're a member of a group. So I always talk about not just being a member, but being a committee member as well. I think it's really important to discuss with our clients. 100%. I think, being a part of any association, I think shows your commitment to quality and value. And it also shows to your client that actually there is an external place that we can go if there's an issue, essentially.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So just some really practical advice then for anybody starting out. So let's imagine I've just done a PAT testing course, I got my certificate, I bought a PAT tester, bought some labels. What would be the thing you would do on day one to go out and get some work?
Okay.
Yeah, just some really, really practical advice for somebody who's in that.
Yeah, 100%.
In that situation.
Oh, it's where I was when I first started. I was in no different position. So getting your name out there is one of the most important things you can do in as many places as you possibly can. So there's the PATA group, make sure you're joining the Facebook group as well, because there's lots of business that's passed around between members.
Right.
I've worked with other members, other members have worked with me, and I'll come back to that in a minute, Tim, if that's okay, because I'd like to ask you a question. But yeah, certainly getting your name out there on the social media platforms, and certainly within PATTA, LinkedIn. LinkedIn can be useful. Certainly adding people within your area, people that you might know, the premises managers locally and things like that. They're the things that I do straight away because they're nice and easy. And you're bound to pick up a little bit of work through that. Then I'm going to go back to my previous point. You've got to get out there. You've got to knock some doors, and you've got to see people. 100%.
No, that's fine. What about maybe contacting other pack testing companies and maybe sort of shadowing them? Do you think that's a good thing to do?
I think that's a brilliant way of doing things. 100%. If you're looking for experience as well, so and I'd always offer our company if anybody wanted to shadow any of my guys and come out with my guys, not a problem whatsoever. I haven't told the guys yet, but I'm sure they'll be fine with it.
No, that's right. We do the same.
But no, certainly, going out and getting some experience. I'm sure there'll be companies.
Don't pinch that client.
No, 100%. Morals, back to your values and morals, 100%, definitely. But I think there's an old adage: people buy from people. And that's why I say about getting there and seeing people. But certainly if you go and shadow a pack testing company and you get to know them, you get to know the manager or the director or the other engineers, you're now somebody that they trust and they understand a little bit more. And actually, we've got a job. Well, we've got Dave here that we could use. He shadowed us. We quite liked him. He's got a bit of experience now. Let's use him. So I think that's a great way of doing it.
And then I suppose the follow-on from that is to sort of try and trade some jobs with other businesses. If you've got a PATTA member that's 100 miles away from you, but they've got a little job in your area, maybe we can do that.
Well, my first port of call when I've got work that's outside of our area, if my guys can't deliver it, the first place I will go to is the PATTA group.
Oh, okay,
The reason I go there is because standards are very important to us. And how we deal with clients is very important to us. And so for me, using a PATTA member, if they're working towards the working standards, which they should be,
of course,
then there's an element of trust from me straight away that actually they care about what they do because they've taken the time to join PATTA and want to be part of a bigger picture. So I would always go there first. Equally, we've had PATTA members come to us as well and use us equally. So certainly doing that. Tim, you started PATTA originally. The networking side of things. Probably a bit more experience from yourself in that respect, really.
Definitely.
How's things changed, or what do you see sort of happening?
Well, certainly PATTA is making some inroads. Obviously, I was heavily involved with the 5th edition Code of Practice and had a little bit of influence on the New British Standards as well. There's quite a lot happening in terms of the way the government is sort of tackling electrical safety. So it's nice to sort of be at the table, if you like, in that sort of respect. But the biggest thing about PATTA at the moment, I think, is just sort of raising some. When our 3 stated aims are, we're trying to raise standards, we're trying to share good practice, and generally improve the reputation of the industry. And I think we're doing pretty well with that. But Rome wasn't built in a day. No. It takes a long time. But I think basically we're going in the right direction. And we are finding that, like you say, having the PATTA membership, having that on our website, having been able to put that on our logos and our results, and just talk to our customers, and the customers know that they're going to get a good service because we've signed up to the working standards, and we're working to those just that level of professionalism. Really, I think that's important.
100%, definitely. I think I'm seeing a lot of changes now, being on the inside a little bit more, and I can see some of the things that are coming up. We've got a huge event coming up in October. I had to think then for a second.
No, that's got that wrong. You put me on the spot as well.
Absolutely. So we've got obviously more details to follow, which we might release by the time this goes out. Not too sure, but we've got a huge event coming up in October in Grantham, where we met last time as a team. We're going to be putting lots of things on. There's going to be some educational bits in there. There's going to be a bit more about the sales and marketing side. There's going to be some educational bits on the technical side as well. We're hoping to have some guest speakers. It's going to be a really, really interesting day. But listen, if anything you get by coming to it, you're going to get some networking opportunities, and that goes back to the point we were sort of discussing there, and actually speaking to other members and having conversations with other members, because you really do build up your level of credibility when you speak to other people and you get your name known a little bit.
Of course,
definitely.
So I want to ask you about your business and how you sort of got into PAT testing, because I know you do fire extinguishers as well. And so tell us a little bit about how you sort of got into the industry, but as well, what I want to know is what sort of parallels you see between PAT testing and the fire extinguishers, because obviously, I think from what you told me, the fire extinguisher business is probably a bit bigger than the PAT testing industry. There's certainly sort of 5 or 6 trade associations, whereas with PAT testing there's only really one. And I think you've said to me that the profit margins are usually a little bit higher, and businesses tend to have a bit more sort of spare cash to invest in things like training and development and expanding. So sorry, I'm not answering your question.
No.
You talk to me about how you got into this and what the parallels are. Yeah.
So I sort of lived in corporate life 15, 20 years, whatever the year was, don't know, give me age away.
That's all right.
But 15, 20 years in sort of corporate life. And I sort of knew I always wanted my own business, really. It's a sort of desire of mine for years. And I'd worked in the fire industry. That was kind of one of the main first industries that I was in, and a great way to sort of work in the fire industry is through fire extinguishers as a specialist subject. A lot of the fire companies tend to specialise in fire alarms rather than the mechanical side and the fire extinguisher side. So that was kind of my first port of call. And a great sort of bolt-on to that, if you like, initially was thinking about the PAT testing side, and it actually ended up becoming one of the sort of predominant things that we actually do. The more I looked into it, the more I liked it as an industry, essentially. And the two have kind of fused together where they're both kind of equally, great revenue-generating disciplines for us. But kind of started 2019 was when I first started Trent Safety Services. As I say, walked away from regular wage career path and decided to go this route. 7 months later, COVID hit. That was an interesting time. So was delivering fruit and veg 2-3 days a week just to bring a bit of cash in. Unfortunately, the government said you've not been trading for 3 years, so best of luck to you. So,
heavens.
But we managed to get through that period. Perseverance. I actually used that time. Rather than kind of seeing it as a downtime, I actually used that to do some of the things that we spoke about today. I couldn't go knocking on doors, not without me. Alcohol gel in my hand, mask on, absolutely. But I networked quite a lot through LinkedIn and things like that, and worked on the website really heavily because I had the time. It was better than dancing in the kitchen and
of course,
what I mean, and doing everything people were doing on videos and TikToks or whatever it was. So I did that. I worked on the business. And because of that, we sort of had a bit of a slingshot effect on the other side, where we actually gained quite a sort of few bigger contracts, if you like. And from there, we've been able to grow. There's a team of 5 of us now, so we're still relatively small business, based in Nottingham. But we're in the first year, coming to the end of the first year of our growth plan.
Right.
So we've kind of moved away now from having a business plan, and what we've got is a growth plan, which is basically an accelerated growth between sort of beginning of sort of June last calendar year for a 3-year period.
Wow,
and at the end of that 3-year period, when we've hit the target, which I'm confident we'll do, we'll write another growth plan for the next 3-year period. So really looking forward to it. The team is right behind me on it. We're hoping to add a couple more bodies within that next couple of year period, which I think we'll do. Really excited about it. Forgive me, Tim, what was the second part of the question?
No, that was about the parallels between...
that's right. Yeah, of course. There's a lot, to be honest. There's a hell of a lot. And I think it boils down to a lot of what we were talking about earlier with sort of poor practice and great practice. And obviously the same for me on the fire extinguisher side is the PAT testing. It's about the value that we add is through our quality of work that we deliver for our clients. And it's the reporting as well. So everything that we do, we try and give as much detail as we can to our client, because that's kind of our honesty policy. If you can provide a full detailed report, so for example on the fire extinguishers we pop QR codes on the back of it, that gives us a very detailed report of weights, brackets are right, signage is right.
Wonderful.
Very similar to what you kind of deliver on a full PAT test report, which is, look, there's all the PAT test readings. That's telling you everything. The client's not going to read that report necessarily and be able to kind of understand it. But what it demonstrates is that I've done a proper test. And I've actually taken the time, because you can't stick 1,000 labels on without proper instrument readings where possible. You know what I mean? But yeah, very similar in terms of sort of poor quality and good quality, and price as well. You know, there's a bit of a there's a bit of a drive. Maybe there was a bit of a drive, I'd say, kind of to lower the prices. I think extinguisher industry has also got the challenge of online pricing for the actual goods itself. But you know, people get these extinguishers through online retailers and then don't realise that really they should be commissioned. So we've got the challenge of kind of battling against that as well, and educate, again, it goes back to educating clients is the most important.
So I think sometimes in the PAT testing industry, we see all this bad PAT testing going on, we see all these big national companies offering really low prices, not doing the job right, and we kind of probably we kind of feel that that's exclusive to our industry, but it's interesting to know that it happens in other industries as well, and the techniques that you're kind of using to sort of combat that in the fire industry are techniques that we can use as an industry to sort of try and get across the idea that it has to be done right when it comes to PAT testing as well.
Do you know, the funny thing is, Tim, we've spoken a lot about the negatives within the industry today, and I think that's kind of something we get sucked into a little bit as you know, whether it's through social media or whatever it is on the groups and things like that. There is a lot of good in the industry as well. And actually the bad that we talk about, the reason we talk about it, because from my point of view, it's an opportunity. So you talk about the parallels. Now, when I walk into a site and I might see a particular label on an extinguisher, and we all know about the same with PAT testing, we might see a label and we go, well, we know who's doing that and we know it's not being done right. But we do see that. I'm going to be really honest, we do see that on the fire extinguisher side as well. But I see that as an opportunity. Because even if they're paying a lower rate, I can demonstrate the difference between what we will do, quite clearly, between what we will do and what they do. We picked up a contract, so one of my guys working on a contract this week that I think came to us, I think about 190 extinguishers on site.
Wow,
It's a real big contract. They're sort of, you know, a few days, scanning it all in, making sure everything's right. And as a result of that, the client actually now wants us to work on another 2 or 3 sites in the country, because we've demonstrated the positive work and the difference between what they were getting and what they're getting now. And I think that I see that, rather than sometimes looking at a PAT test client, you walk in and going, seeing that label and going, well, I'm not going to win that because they're charging X per amount. See it as an opportunity. We know you're using this. How long are they on site for? Well, I've got this many items and they're here an hour. Well, how can they be realistically taking all the plug tops off, checking all the fuses and doing a thorough inspection of the cable, you know, and things like that. For me, see those poor practices as an opportunity rather than a negative.
So when you're first starting out then, do you think we should be looking at any particular industry? I mean, would we be going after schools, or would we be going after like DJs and bands, or would we be going after factories or whatever? What would be your sort of recommendation for somebody first starting out? When
we first started, Tim, we particularly targeted officers.
And
we went for that specifically because it's nice, fairly basic equipment. You're going to go into an office, you're going to have what? Monitor, computer maybe, some lamps, you know, a printer maybe. All fairly basic stuff to test, if you like. Nothing, you know, where we're going to walk in and there's 3-phase 110 or audio equipment that we've got no idea about, that we could actually end up damaging potentially if we do something incorrectly. And also, we spoke earlier about this, Tim, and we sort of spoke about sort of competency, and we talked about credibility.
Absolutely.
And sort of, you know, what you don't want to be doing is standing on, you know, finding a piece of equipment, scratching your head, going, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know what you're doing, 100%. It's that credibility piece.
So but also, as you go.
You cut your teeth a little bit more doing an office because fairly relaxed atmosphere, I would say, the offices that we've sort of done. It allows you to maybe take your time to begin with a little bit as well. You know, you're not rushed. Making sure that you're putting equipment back properly, testing it properly, and not walking into something that's going to blow your mind straight away. Cut your cloth accordingly, I'd say.
Absolutely. So would you say that it would be better to sort of target lots of smaller clients, or would you go straight after sort of bigger clients, because obviously bigger clients are going to be higher value? but possibly high risk as well if it doesn't go well. So what would be your advice on that?
Oh, certainly starting out, you'd want to target smaller companies, definitely, to, as I said, cut your cloth accordingly. There's a difference between a small company and a big company. And we have a mix. As we've grown as a company, you want a mix of the two, essentially. You wouldn't want to put all your eggs in just the bigger companies, certainly not, because it's a greater risk.
Yeah, of course.
If they don't pay, if they're to go under or something like that, that's a much bigger invoice than a small one. Couple of £100 invoice. Okay, it's frustrating. You know, I've kicked the wall a few times when we've had a few things go wrong, you know. But it's less of a dent on the overall revenue stream. If you're losing a few £1,000s, there's actually a fundamental risk to your business.
I mean, to be fair, that happened to my business. In about 2008, 2009, we were doing a lot of work in the retail sector. And that was tough because the prices were getting lower and lower every year, and we were only just making it profitable. And then, of course, 2008, 2009, a lot of our customers just went under. And some of them were on 90-day terms as well, so we'd already done 3 months' work for them, and then they went under. We lost a lot of money. I had to do a lot of restructuring then, and it was a tough time. I suppose now we tend to sort of target smaller businesses just for that reason, because
100%. I mean, if you're employing staff as well, Tim. So if you've got, you know, if you've got 100 small clients. And you've got a couple of, you sort of, you know, a lot. Say you had a couple of big clients that are equivalent. Now, if you just had those big clients and you were to lose one, then the chances are you might have to let a member of staff go. You know, or equivalent, or you're losing revenue that's important for paying your mortgage or rent or whatever it might be. Now, if you were to lose one or two of the smaller ones, they're easily replaced, and they're not going to make a massive dent on that sort of overall annual revenue stream.
Yeah, that's true. I always say if you can sort of get like 100 clients in your first year, and then if you do a good job, you'll maybe win most of those next year. So if you get 90 of those next year, but then you get another 100, then you've almost doubled the turnover of your business, haven't you?
It's staged incremental growth, and that's really what you want as a business. Now, I'm not saying stay away from the bigger companies, not at all, no. There are some really good opportunities out there, but just do due diligence. Make sure that you are capable of completing that work as well, you know. And if you are going to grow and then start taking staff on to deliver that, then what's the overall risk if one of them was to be lost? You know, like, for example, you know, and it's not just losing to a competitor, things like the economy and things like that. Of
course.
As you well know from your anecdote there, Tim, these all sort of lend into it. And as long as, the way I look at it from my business is we've got basically a bank of those smaller companies, and they make up the foundations of our business. And that's allowed us then to start targeting, because we've got experience from carrying those out. Because those larger companies are going to expect an element of experience, competency that you're not going to get on day one. But once you've built that and you've got that base, if we do lose one of those, actually the reality is now, because you end up charging, if we think about a per item rate, for example, right? Now, I know obviously there'll be initial rates and then price per items and things like that, but if you break it down on a price per item throughout that bank, you are charging that bank a hell of a lot more than you are charging that larger client. They're more profitable, 100%. And these guys take longer to pay. There's a greater risk, but they are still important. They are still worth going for. But get that foundation set first. That'll allow you to start chasing those afterwards.
Do you think there's an element of the really bigger clients, like the big national companies, they've kind of got that tied up in terms of facilities management, and it's probably more about price to them than it is to, like, for example, if you went to a local hairdresser, you can chat to them about the quality of the service, and they'll be prepared to pay a bit more for it to be done right. Whereas the chief executive of a multinational company or the facilities management side of a big national company, they're only really interested in price, aren't they?
It's bottom line for them, isn't it? They're looking at, you know, their overall profitability of that one large business and what they can shave off.
You're competing against all the big national companies that just go around and put stickers on and charge 50p an item. So
you are definitely, but that's not to say that they still can't be won.
Yeah.
This goes back to, like I say, opportunities.
Yeah.
And if you can convince or you can educate your client on the difference between you carrying it out and what you'll deliver through your differentiators compared to what those companies are, then that work can still be won.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, good to know. I'm going to wrap up fairly soon because we've been chatting quite a long time. It's all good though. I want to ask you about sort of like the practicalities of like day to day in terms of professionalism. Now you've got a spotless white polo shirt on. I bet
brand new for today, Tim.
Brand new to this today. I wondered whether it would be. It's still
the fold mark in it, just there, maybe.
Yeah. So hang it up in the shower. That's what I do.
Oh yeah.
I buy non-iron shirts and I hang them up in the shower. That works well for me. But I was going to say, obviously, in terms of professionalism, like turning up at the client's premises, what do you say when you walk in, and how important is it to even just things like turning up on time and that sort of thing?
Fundamentals, absolute fundamentals of your business. For me, I think, so we've got certain policies within our business, and one of that, for example, is an appearance policy.
Yeah.
That we take pride in how we look when we turn up on site, because that gives that air of professionalism.
Yeah.
And there's, if you are asking your clients to pay a little bit more than the sticker guys, should we say, then they're going to expect something a little bit more. Reality is.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't come just from a test that you do. That comes from how your client perceives you.
Yeah.
And for me, somebody coming who looks smart with a logo, maybe a PATTA logo on them as well, or an association logo, just says to me a little bit more, this guy's a bit more professional. He takes pride in his work and what he's doing. His tools are tidy. These are all things that I ask of my guys. Your van's tidy, it's clean. Your uniform's straight. You look presentable when you turn up to site. You've got the correct protective shoes on. Health and safety, really important.
PPE.
100%. When you start working on some of these industrial sites as well, and you're required to turn up with goggles and safety boots and things like that, making sure that they're well kept. I know that's a health and safety requirement anyway, but actually just demonstrating that you care about what you're doing, I think speaks volumes. As I say, as a business, we've got a set of values, which is our sort of moral compass. And part of that comes into how we are perceived and things like turning up on time, how we communicate with clients. I think that it goes back to what I've been saying throughout this session, really, which is your differentiators. And that the difference between you kind of how you appear and how you kind of present yourself to your client could be a really good differentiator between somebody turning up who maybe doesn't do that and sticks a load of stickers on. You're the difference, essentially.
Of course. That's brilliant. So overall then, as a summary, do you think PAT testing is still a good business to get into?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no regrets from me from getting into this industry, and I want to grow it even more. And I see growth in the industry. 100%. I mentioned about the fire industry driving some of that growth as well. Part of the risk assessment side of things is to have you got a PAT testing regime. Now, I know that PAT testing is not the law. We know that, but part of the Health and Safety at Work Act means that you have to have maintenance or provable way of demonstrating that your electrical equipment is...
Try claiming on your insurance if you have
100%. But on the fire side, it doesn't even say anything like, do you have an electrical regime? It says, do you have PAT testing? So I think that's driving a lot of new clients towards us that might not have had PAT testing in the past. So we do a lot of fire risk assessments, or we see a lot of fire risk assessments from our fire side. And when we see them, the amount of crossovers we've had where we said, we've had a fire risk assessment, can we have some PAT testing done? So I see a real growth.
Fantastic. So the future's bright.
100%, Tim. Definitely.
Amazing. Right. Brilliant. Liam, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, thanks for watching this PATA podcast. Hopefully this will be the first of many. Liam mentioned that we're going to do a PATA event in Grantham in October. That's going to be on Friday, October the 2nd. We'll be announcing a lot more details about that. Depending on when you're watching this, of course, it's going to be October the 2nd, 2026. So if you're watching this in 2030, it's probably been and gone. But Liam's going to talk quite a lot about this kind of stuff at that event as well. I'll be talking about some technical issues as well, and we're going to have some guest speakers. So please join us on the 2nd of October in Grantham. Put that date in your diary. We'll announce more about that in the future. But all it remains for me to do is to thank Liam once again for coming to Hull today to do this PATTA podcast. If you want to know more about the Portable Appliance Testing Trade Association, check out the website. That's patta.co.uk. You can get in touch with me, you can get in touch with Liam, you can get in touch with any of the steering group committee members, and find out more on our Facebook group and on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks for watching.